All right, and we are live. So today I am here with Andrew, otherwise known as Cotvg from GIMP. He has been playing Star Wars since a kid for several years. Recently got into GIMP, a few years ago. He was in the kind of the top eight for the 2021 PDS2 retro event, and we have a couple of cool deck techs to discuss today. And I'm so glad I'm having him here. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. I mean, this has been great. You've done a great job. I think I really enjoyed your interview with Mandarin.
Yeah.
3 hours, and I didn't even want it to end. I think you guys had a really good discussion. So yeah, happy. I think the retro community really needs this content. I think that it's great what you're doing. So thank you, Bill.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Andrew COTBG. So yeah, absolutely. Let's get started. Okay, so I guess kind of start with kind of like a background. So 2021, you had a couple decks. So there was a deck running around, bring before me. Zun has a deck. I he he's kind of infamous. He's not here anymore, but his was a little bit similar to yours in that he had a lot of senses, he had a lot of barriers, and just pound people. And then you had a deck. I didn't see much of your deck at the time, but you made the top eight, and I would love to hear about it. So you kind of had a bring before me kind of space deck, but you also had kind of the standard packages of items. So I'd love to hear you kind of talk about and kind of why you chose this deck and kind of how it went.
Yeah, happy to go through it. Yeah, so I definitely had more of a version of Bring 'em Before Me. So I use Emperor's Power, which made it harder to control, two battlegrounds. Like it was hard to set up um, search and destroy, and it's hard to like really like if you're not using the Emperor to battle because he's parked at the throne room. Definitely needed to kind of shift gears with the deck a little bit. So I think that might be a difference between mine and Zutton's. Mine is definitely space first, but Bring Him Before Me, I found never needed additional help on the ground anyway. It pretty much holds its own in the ground game without even playing a battleground site. So that was the approach I took. If they want to take it to space, I'm happy to just live up there. But if they had sites and they wanted to spread out on the ground, I had the cards needed to just kind of attack there too. So, yeah, do you have the deck up? I don't know if you're sharing the
Oh,
screen
oh,
or.
oh, you know what? I am recording. I'm not sure. Let me share so you can see what I see. Let me click the button here. Give it just a second here. Let's share the window. I will click allow, and then we're gonna go to this. There we go. Okay. All right. Let me know if you can see it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
There we go. That's much better. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So, yeah. No, you're right. You have the ground package. I mean, you have Mara Jade and her lightsaber. You have IG-88. You have Boba. And so yeah, you do have a crew that can go toe to toe on the ground, of course, in addition to Vader, I see. And so you're right. You don't have like a starting battleground, though I do see you have presence of the force here. So was your tactic
Mhm.
like to, like put this on the Death Star 2 docking bay or the Executor docking bay at some point, or I don't understand
It
that.
was really just to use it as needed. It's such a versatile card. So sometimes you use that. It's free to deploy. So if you see they're kind of deploying thin to a site, maybe like that's not a battleground, you can come and attack even with like Vader or something. Like it comes down as almost like your spy um, to give you presence. But I think my kind of the key like objective with this deck is just it's not necessarily to cause them to lose all of their force. It's really to control the board.
Mhm.
Once they're out of characters, no matter how much force they have left, game's over. They can't win. So the objective really is just kind of just get rid of them wherever they go. And so kind of the keys to that victory for me are it starts and what makes Bring 'em Before Me such an overpowering platform is the activation it gives you. So that activation differential, you have Emperor Palpatine coming out, deploy -2, and then with mob points, you put him at like Death Star 2 docking bay, and right away you're just getting +3 more in your activation. So that pays for itself by the next turn. Then you pull out Executor docking bay, and you use your Imperial commands to pull out Ozzel or Piet, um, preferably Piet. He gets down on the Executor docking bay, deploy -2, and then he's going to search out Merrick, and then Merrick is going to search out some of your systems, which give you a activation differential there as well. So you pull out Kessel and Fondor, and yeah, so the activation is key because that lets you do the next, I guess, key to any dark side deck, key to any CCG really is you want card advantage, right? Like you want to have more cards than them, and Star Wars is a game that has Monarch and Grimtosh, so that's gonna, when you're playing this deck, you can win the card advantage game because if they have a Grimtosh, you already have Emperor on the table and you have a lot of senses. So you can stop them from playing Grim. And then when you play Monarch, you are most likely going to win the Sense Alter battle, so you could keep their card advantage at their hand at a card disadvantage. Um, so that was really one of the keys, and what makes this deck kind of really easy to play is that you're just going to draw up really high, um, and you're going to blow past that 12 card, like kind of respect hand, and you're gonna go as big as you can get. Um, and then you're going to come down wherever they go. You're going to come down um, and just hammer them. So once you get Fondor out, you get the Executor out as quickly as you can, and is really gonna give you a good foothold in space, and you'll just have a steady drain of one or two. But then you're gonna just sit there with the big hand. And I mean, I always looked at the way the Sense Alter battle goes is the way I'll know if I should participate or not is, do I have a bigger hand than them? That's my indicator, right? I mean, I'm sure other people have like a similar rule. So if you're playing against a TRM deck, or one of those decks that plays a lot of Sense and Alters, if you have a bigger hand, then you could happily participate in a Sense Alter battle and feel pretty good about your chances. So the way this deck evolved the way it was, I guess the decks that I thought were the hardest to beat when you're dark side are TRM, that nudges TRM deck, and hidden base X-Wings. And so really for the tournament, I wanted to build something that matched up really well against those two, because I thought a lot of light side players would use those. And it did. That's the kind of deck that this is really geared towards beating. You have Monarch for the X-Wings. You have a lot of space to just kind of limit their X-Wings from, like you just take them off the table slowly. And then against Nudge TRM, you don't give them anything to really attack, right? You're not deploying the sights. It's really only playing the Super Falcon in space. So, and to get there, they have to draw up really big, right? Like to find all those cards. So that's what you have your Monarch, and you're trying to win that Sense Alter battle for.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. No, bring them before me when you're playing for Sense Alter, because Hunt Down couldn't do Sense and Alters easily until they flipped, so it was not as popular because they had one Obi-Wan to his side or one Luke to his side, and then he was adding +4. But bring before me, you can deploy the Emperor, turn one, and then turn one, you're right. You can draw up a whole bunch of cards, and you have a whole bunch of senses, and you're right. You can go past the respect them, as you said. Zun did all the time, so I imagine you did the same, and that's a huge advantage. And it's a tactic that Zun did. It's a tactic Dr. Torch does all the time. And if you can do it, why not? More cards, more resources, and then I'm guessing that helps your counterpunch a lot. So, I think a lot of people fighting this wouldn't necessarily expect you'd have ground forces. Like you have sniper. Like I've never seen a space deck was a sniper, but that's cool. I kind of like that bit there.
Yeah, like is that you use Vader, you scoop Luke, which is their best ground card, right? So there's not a lot that they're gonna really hit you with on the ground, and when they do, you have three characters. You're really only battling with three characters. I really rarely use Fett. He kind of sits. He's there more when you face Prophet. You want him and Mara. You just want to have a second alien, otherwise Mara gets steamrolled at the audience chamber. But it's really just three characters that I'm using. It's IG, Vader, and Mara to attack on the ground. And the reason I like them is they all draw destiny on their own, and Emperor's power gives them a second destiny, and they all have a weapon. So you have kind of you're hitting two destinies and a weapon on whatever they deploy. So I think it's just packs a powerful punch to just kind of get rid of whatever they put on the ground. Vader comes in and scoops Luke. So if they paired Luke with some character for some reason, Vader's just gonna scoop Luke and beat down that character. And yeah, it's the ground. When I originally built this, I definitely had a lot more ground, and I realized that you could really narrow it down to just those three characters and really be effective.
Yeah.
And you don't have to defend any sites, right? Like I don't even play a battleground site, so I'm only going to their sites. I'm just clearing them off of their own sites.
Yeah, and I like it when a deck can can kind of deploy kind of selfishly. Like they don't have to deploy both a battleground and a battleground site independent. You can kind of, I guess, preserve your deck, because TRM loves to just deploy wherever you are all the time. So I guess that was kind of my curiosity. Like TRM loves to go attack the Emperor. So you are using Emperor's power.
Hmm.
So, and I'm guessing that you're deploying him to the Death Star 2 docking bay, and then as soon as you have a Vader in hand or you feel safe, you don't need activation, then you kind of move. How do you kind of just determine how long to keep him at the docking bay?
Yeah, against TRM, I don't keep them there as long because it's hard to remove a character from the throne room. So you want to get them to the throne room right away, but they are deployed +2 to the Death Star 2. So it really is they'll sometimes your opponent's going to try to overrun you there, but all their character like an EPPOB is 7 force. The spy that he has to come with is now 2 plus 2 force. So you're at 11 force just to get those cards down. So it is hard to overrun the Emperor, and then he's drawing 2 destiny, so he's clearing out a lot of it. Um, and if they don't hit him with the strike, like it is tough to overrun. And I play 3 barriers, so the 3 barriers I think is critical for bringing before me, because if you don't, Luke is just going to keep coming at you from Lost Pile. So like if you deploy any cards to any sites and Luke's not on the table, you'd expect Luke to come out next turn, and so you always are saving a barrier for Luke because you never want to battle Luke with bring him before me. You just want to scoop him. You want him off the table. Um, if they forfeit Luke, you wasted an opportunity to have them forfeit other characters.
Agreed. Agreed. It makes sense. Now there are some bring them before me's, right? That they try to abuse it, like some of them do. I have you now, which means like the Emperor's like, yeah, come over here, Luke, and I'm gonna get 3 or 4 battle destiny and just try to blow you out. I do notice that you
Mm-hmm.
have some identity, so you didn't go the I have you now route. Um,
Yeah, I really don't like I have you now and bring him before me because the reason for using this objective is so that you don't even have to think about Luke. Like you just pull him right off the table no matter what. And if they want to use it, you don't have to worry about in this format because bring him before me is so powerful. You don't even have to worry about like R2 and Red 5 with Luke as a pilot. So it just takes away really decks that center around Luke. Um, and so I don't want to pack any cards that are teching for Luke because Light Side has so many tricks at its disposal that I'd rather use those card slots to handle some of the other things like the cards that you're gonna have to worry about, like Revolution, so I have Volters, or Fallen Portal, so you have Sense, or Order to Engage, so you have Volters. Like, I'd rather just keep the deck as balanced as possible, and then just pack the counters to what Light Side might try to use as its crafty way to victory.
yeah, absolutely, and I like the fact that this card is famous in the dual version reflections too. I do like that you have this right. Those rebels won't
Mhm.
escape us. You don't see a ton of people using this one.
Yeah, that was more because the deck that this had the most trouble with, which I guess I got lucky I didn't face it, is training. Obviously, because I can't sense alter anything. And then what training does is if you play the executor, you play these Imperial starships. They just throw a landing claw up there, and it blocks pretty much one of your 3 drains that you have. So I wanted landing claw. I wanted that to get rid of the landing claw because I didn't want to play the character that gets rid of it. There's only the 2 options to removing landing claw, so that was just basically landing claw tech, um, and that's the main reason for playing that. And then circle, in case they do training, it's really hard. It becomes hard to get rid of Obi-Wan, so you need circle to kind of help with that. But yeah, luckily didn't have to face training. But against hidden base X wings, this deck does really well because it just clears them out, right? So hidden base X wings, they're not going to deploy to any site. So that in that game, that matchup, I'll probably use my presence of the force to set up battle order. I'll just put it where on Emperor's site, um, and then I'll come up in space. And if they want to, they're not really going to go towards the executor because there's no real benefit to trying to remove that. It's only 1 drain. But when they do try to spread thin, that's when you could come down with like when you have the big hand, you could find all the cards you need to really do these to do a good combo, which would be like you have your Dreadnought, you have Ozzel, right? So those 2 come down for 5 total force, and then now you draw a Destiny, and then you also add a Destiny with Emperor's Power. So you're at for 5 force, you have 7 power, you have 2 Destiny. You have Imperial Command in your hand. Now you're 5 force, 7 power, 3 destiny, right? You could do a lot of damage. They're gonna have to forfeit a lot of ships, and then um, it just that could kind of tilt the game a little bit. Once hidden base loses a lot of its X-wings, it becomes hard. It loses its retrieval at the end of the game. So the fewer ships you could have them have on the table, the better shape you'll be. Um, the the ships that I play are all geared. They all have 2 ability, because then they could go down with a pilot or just 2 of them together, and they're drawing 2 destinies, because Emperor's power and then the 4 ability. So Bosk adds a destiny. So when you could just you could crack ships immunity, that's when you could remove them off the table.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess it's I'm guessing because you plan on using Emperor's power, that's kind of why you're not doing Dengar, because you feel you don't need the extra immunity cracker. You're hoping that battle destinies kind of spill over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Zuckuss draws on his own. Bosk draws on his own. Danger doesn't. He needs someone else there. So you deploy Bosk. He's drawing 2 destiny on his own because of Emperor's power. You deploy Zuckuss and Mist Hunter. That's 2 destiny on its own because of the 4 abilities. Um, so yeah, I like having one card come down and just really just not necessarily spill over damage, but just remove their cards from the table, which is the objective with this deck.
Yeah, it makes sense. And unfortunately, you couldn't do this with kind of Boba Fett because he has the draws one if unable to otherwise. So adding one will not help you. So he's kind of
Right.
a
Yeah.
no-go, fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So you did the dreadnoughts. The dreadnoughts are cool because they're going to be Destiny 4 with oppressive enforcement, and I'm
Right.
guessing I'm guessing you're trying to do what? Mobilization points, oppressive enforcement, and arrest order by default.
Yep.
Standard package.
Yeah, pretty standard, safe opening. You're kind of like ready for anything light side could throw at you with this deck. It's pretty easy to play. You have a big hand. It's everything's just going to come down and attack. You Monarch, you could see what they have. You could think about, okay, how are they gonna, like, if I did come down with Oz, like, am I getting barrier? Do I need to have a sense? Do I need to, like, how am I gonna attack them? And I think Monarch does a really good job of preparing you for that knockout punch, because you could see their hand first. And in another case, Monarch just double, if it hits them for doubles, you maybe only made them lose 2 force with it, but it's usually their 2 best force, right? Like if they're playing doubles of a card, it's because it's the card that their deck is like centered around. So if you get rid of 2 EPP Leias, or so, like, it's usually a card that they really wanted. So that's why I think Monarch is such a powerful card, and it fits really well with this deck.
No, I agree with you, and I like the fact that, like Dr. Torch, you're pulling 2 of them, and many people expect you to use one, and then you pull the second, and they're like, oh, geez, they thought they could be free, but you have that in your back pocket.
Monarch and Death Star 2, it is a big problem for a lot of light side decks.
Well,
Um,
the interesting thing is when you look at the starter decks for Death Star 2, right? The one where you got the free Piet and you got the free Akbar, right? Both of them actually had 2 Monarchs and 2 Grimtoshes in the default, starter set. They had a bunch of cards that weren't so great. I guess it was an optimized deck, but it was interesting that even the Cypher designers were really trying to push people to punish people for having too many cards or duplicates, whatever.
it,
So
it's such a big advantage. If you play to that advantage, you're going to win a lot of games. Like, that's the card advantage in this game matters more than, I mean, it matters a lot.
agreed. Okay, one Twilight Advisor, so you could pull President of the Force, you could pull Secret Plans, you could pull a Grabber if you needed to.
And a lot of decks like to use 2 Twilight Advisors. I don't think there's any effect that this deck needs to run. So I like having it just in case. But also, I'm drawing so many cards as it is. I might find the effect I need, or I might need to use Twilight. I think 2 is overkill in this deck. But yeah, I think 1 Twilight Advisor. If you need a card, you can search it out. If you need security precautions for that matchup, if you need um, your numbers protection, go for that. But it, 2, I think, is overkill. I know, yeah, that's it's kind of just the strategy I went with here.
if you were facing a hidden base deck, would you start, Cannon Hide Forever to kind of pull security precautions, or would you like prefer just to do your standard, three effects and then later, get this a different way? Or help me understand that scenario.
Yeah, I'm always gonna go with the standard three. Hidden base is tricky because you never know what you reveal first, your effects. So you don't know what style hidden base you're up against until after you've made your decision. So I think generally I'll just in most decks I always look at hidden base. I'm leaning towards secret plans. This deck I'll never do that, but I'm always thinking, okay, I'm playing hidden base. I think they're gonna have retrieval at some point, whether it's X wings, whether it's mains. There's going to be some like on the edge. It might be whatever hidden base is. It usually has a retrieval element to it. So I'll lean towards secret plans, but in this deck, oppressive enforcement, just because you got the two grabbers, you want to be able to grab whatever they're trying to get to work with, and then it also helps in case they do play Sense and Alter. You don't have to worry so much if you lose the battle.
Agreed. Agreed makes sense. I guess the only thing, you chose to do three planets, right? So, you did Ozzel. You did not go kind of for Shurno, right? A lot of decks try to get that +1 drain. You opted to go Executor only, no Shurno. Is that just because you felt that the Dreadnoughts were just so much faster? You didn't need that +1 drain, or help me understand that one?
Yeah, I never liked Cherno because I it goes back to like a card played is a card lost, right? So his only real use to me was to add to that drain. So now you need 2 turns of drain to recover that to get a return on that investment. So the turn you play him, you're really 3 turns away from recovering that, right? Like to getting a
Mhm.
return on that investment. So I generally don't play him. If you're maybe using an ISB deck and you have a lot of Star Destroyers out, you're going to get him out fast and spread thin. He might like I think that's probably where he plays the best. But in Bring Him Before Me, I'm not trying to outdrain them. I'm trying to remove them from the board, and he doesn't help me remove anybody.
Okay. Other than they're draining over time, but it's kind of slow for just that reason. You only have one Star Destroyer, and I'm
Yeah, one
guessing,
where
yeah,
yeah, I like the dreadnoughts are faster. They give me a better the destiny in this deck is not great, so I like having the 4 destiny in my ships. Um, and the Emperor's Power lets me usually try and get to a 5. I want to like when you draw 2 destinies, you're not drawing 2 4s in this deck. You're drawing usually a 1 and a 4. Like I think on average, the 2 destiny will add to something around 5 or 6. So it's good enough to crack immunity, but it's that's really all I'm trying to do is get through whatever their immunity is. And in space, it's just really high for light side. It's hard to get rid of light side chips with any other deck.
yeah, I agree. Usually need some kind of, like at a Forlom here for thing, or Forlom and a, IG88 and, power, and, so you have a lot of the Destiny adders. You didn't go for Forlom in here. I guess I'm curious about, kind of what, like, why no Forlom? Because he could help you on the ground. He could add one with Zuckuss, or was it just too
Yeah,
esoteric, or what? Like why didn't he
yeah,
make
I
the cut in
think
this one?
yeah, you're right. He does that on the ground, but I think the ground I just feel good with my 6 characters. I'm controlling the ground. I haven't had any issues. And then in space, you're trying to match just 2 cards together, and it's hard to pull both of them. You don't have like a tunnel vision, so I just never found that I was getting the pair exactly that I needed. Whereas you could combo lateral damage with Zim or lateral damage with your dreadnoughts, and so the other cards kind of all play well together. Whereas Forlom only works when he's in Mist Hunter. I'm already drawing 2 destinies with it, so and also I try and save Zim as long as I can. I think most people will like he's the last ship I want to put down because while he's in your hand, your opponent's just uncomfortable. They can't spread thin yet. They have to always account for just having to have 7 ability to draw destiny everywhere, or an answer like a barrier, and then getting ready with cannons in their hand or something. They have to have something to counter Zim. But once he's on the table, then they can play free and easy. So I like to hold him back as long as possible. And so for to put Forlom in, I'm not I think Forlom I like in court because you search out Zuck as a Mist Hunter. And so what you do is like, I'll play 2 4-LOMs in my court deck because once you get him in your hand, then you just search out Zim and you got your combo, and that could be deadly in space. So, but I'm drawing 2 destinies without him. Three is great, but um, if I put Bosk and Zim, I'm getting 3 destinies. So
Makes sense. And obviously, like, one person, obviously people like to use in several decks. And obviously Janice, so Janice isn't in this deck, so
well,
you're not,
I
yeah,
love Janus in this deck. It's just you're not draining, so
yeah,
it takes away his one of his key abilities. I do like being able to put cards back. I used to play him in this deck, but it was kind of a waste because you're basically using him as an effect. Like he's
yeah.
just using you're just using for a special ability. Um, so I wound up taking him out. He's also bad destiny, and when you just play one copy, you don't find it as so. When I play Janice, I like to play multiple copies so I could consistently get him, and
Hmm.
he's just not valuable enough in this deck to play multiple copies. Um, but yeah, he especially with the circle is now complete. Like Janice, I think works really well when you have that because then you could always cycle a 6 back into your deck. If you're not, going after Obi. But I actually my current bring him before me, I've made 3 changes to this version. I've taken out security precautions. Circle is now complete, and um, what's the last one? The rebels cannot escape. Um, because so one emperor I find is actually you wind up with him in your starting hand a lot, and so
Unfortunately,
I
yes, it's true.
and even if it should only be maybe 30% of your games that he's in your starting hand. I feel like it's every game. So I wind up putting in a second version of the Emperor. He's still good destiny. But just to give you a better odds at getting him at the deploy -2, because if he's in your starting hand, you're paying the full 5 force. You might not get him out first turn. So I have second Emperor, and then I also added in Masterful Move to help find Monarch faster in case you do want to get that out quicker, and that's a 6 as well, so it helps your destiny. And then I also, instead of worrying so much about Landing Claw, I realized Anger, Fear, Aggression is a bigger issue for this deck, so I put in a Projective Telepathy, um, which also helps late game. If you wind up in a game that's coming down to the wire and you're going trading drains back and forth, the fact that this deck could set up battle order really well, they're paying 3 4. They might be paying 3 force for a drain, and then telepathy can make it 5 force for a drain. So it's a good late game card and a good anger, fear, aggression canceller.
I completely agree with you. So and you, yeah, I saw I saw one of your games in the top 8. I did not find the game where you're playing your Bring Before Me. Do you remember what happened in that game? Because I couldn't
Oh, I
exactly.
remember it too well for considering it's like 4 years since the game happened. Yeah, so I had Emperor in my starting hand, and that was part of the problem. You play just one, and he's in your starting hand. Now you're paying 5 force. My opponent was using TRM, and I was lucky that he had no sights in his starting hand, so that hurt him from an activation standpoint. But he did have Gunite in his starting hand, so now I'm sitting with Emperor, and it took me until I think turn 3 to get him down because I had to pay 7 force to deploy him. Um, so TRM it's always going to be a challenge, but you do get really good activation. You want to get Emperor out quick, and um, and then you could attack their nut. You have Mara, who's a spy. She can come down and kind of attack wherever if they try to camp out behind their nudges. You use Presence of the Force if you need to go get Luke from behind their nudges. So you could get past the fact that they don't play battlegrounds either. But yeah, so that's what happened. I was force choked, and TRM was able to do exactly what it set out to do. So they got to draw a bigger hand than me. They were winning the Sense Alter battle. When I tried to Monarch, I lost that Sense Alter battle. Um, and then they were able to control the board, and I wasn't able to regain my position.
I see. All right. Well, unfortunate.
In
Thanks
the
for
in
the
the in
update.
the tournaments, but like in all my games before that, I played a lot of nudge CRM. I played Kipples in the earlier rounds, and it was really successful against it. And a lot of the reason for that is Mara coming down. Mara with sniper. That's like you could really clear a sight with her two destinies, the swing and a sniper. Like that's and then she's draining +1 with the saber. So she does, and she's power +2 with Emperor. Like she's got so many synergies in this deck um, that I really couldn't justify other characters. It's really just her and Vader that I'm trying to use to blow them up wherever they go.
Nice. All right. All right.
Um,
Yeah. Any? I know we need to get to the next deck. Any last thoughts before we move on?
no, this
All
is
right.
it.
Cool. All right. So you want to go over the deck you used from rounds 1 through 5 first?
Yeah, so rounds 1 through 5. So the deck that wound up getting submitted was the Speeders deck, and part of that was because I didn't really want to share my Corvette numbers deck, but also because in my final game, my 10th game, I was 9-0, and so when I played my 10th game, there was like 15 people watching it, and I was like, all right, well, the cat's out of the bag with this deck. Part of what made it so strong was that nobody was really playing a deck similar to it. It comes out, it's really fast, and it just has like nobody really. I mean, I'm sure there were some players that were playing during when Special Edition was the latest, and so maybe the start had been established, but I kind of stumbled upon it like independently, and it just my start is I'll put Haven on Rendezvous Point. I'm sure there's other decks that have done this before, but the thing I like about that is your activation doesn't really matter at that point because your ships are deploy -4 to Rendezvous Point, and they're free to move to Endor. So every Carillion Corvette is now deploy 0 to Rendezvous Point. So no matter how many I have in my hand, I know I could unload them. So that kind of protects me from Monarch in this deck. And so what I was doing, and your opponent doesn't expect you to go this crazy with the deck and play 22 of these Carillion Corvettes. They see maybe 3 or 4 get deployed turn 1, and they're probably thinking, wow, like I guess he had all of his Carillion Corvettes in his hand turn 1. But then every turn you got 3 or 4 more coming down. So that kind of sets up, it gives you a place to deploy your droids, and then lets you quickly try and get numbers going. And if they for dark side, not a lot of dark side decks are starting Cannot Hide Forever, but a lot of them play it, especially in competitive games, because they know that light side is gonna resort to these like dirty tricks. Um, so that it can't be your only win condition, but it's definitely an easy one if they give it to you. Um, so you come down with all these Corvettes, you come down with the droids, and you try and stick them with numbers. But then if they do have the numbers canceller, you still have order to engage, and you still have civil disorder. So you're going to try and chase them around in space with your Corvettes, but you put down so many of them that civil disorder could be a real challenge for them, especially if they have numbers in their deck and they don't want to activate. So now they have to put down a card, or it forces them to do something every turn. They can't just sit there with their current board state.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, no, yeah. We were playing a game. I was trying to use a version of Haven on Rendezvous Point. I was not trying to do the numbers version. I was inspired by Party McFly, who was also using kind of the signal on Rendezvous Point. So I don't know if he came up independently too, or if he saw you in the past or whatever. But no, it's definitely a cool combo. I've never seen someone with 22 Corvettes, and that's what you named your deck when you sent it to me, like 22 Corvettes. How did you come up? How did you decide 22? Because you did a similar number for your speeders, right? Why
So
not 21?
every
Why
time I would
23? Yeah.
every time I would play this deck, I was like, I need more. Like I just need, like I was like, there weren't enough. I needed more. And so finally it kind of trimmed every single card out of this deck, where I mean, like I have no sense alter protection, right? I have no real hidden base. I know hunt down. Like I can't really stop the hunt down ping. Like it's hard to find. You got to find Honor of the Jedi. Like it's there's no I this deck doesn't really defend anything. It's just it throws itself at the opponent and says, all right, just try and deal with this. um so it is a lot of fun to play. I think you don't really make a lot of friends when you use this deck in casual games, so for that reason it was hard to play test. And I don't recommend using it against people that you don't know, because they'll get really mad at you. um
It's
but
true.
it was in a competitive format where it's kind of win at all costs. This deck I kind of always had in my back pocket, and once they announced that they were doing this tournament, I was like, all right, I gotta put this, I had to like test this deck's metal and see if it works, and it was successful. I think almost all of my games, the opponent had Cannot Hide Forever, so the numbers really weren't they weren't the driver for the success of this deck. Usually the Corvettes, they just spill over so much damage. Um, so what I would do is I'll move them to Endor, but then I try and spread thin where it's just two at each site. And I'm not even afraid that I'm not drawing Destiny because it's really hard to spill over against two Corvettes. You have 10 power, you have 16 forfeit. So they need to crack. So you're sitting at a site, they need to crack 28, right? Or no, 16, 26, sorry,
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
they're spilling over damage. And even if their Destiny doesn't crack 8, like I'll forfeit 1 and then I'll come down with 2 more next turn and try and blow them up. So even like a Zuckuss and Miss Hunter, where they're like, oh good, I won't be drawing Destiny. I don't need it. Like I have 10 power. So Zim is at 2 power. So even if it's Zuckuss with 4 Lom, now their 2 Destiny needs to crack at 10, or else they got to forfeit some of their cards. Um, and the other thing I really loved was having Spiral in my hand, because then when you have 2 Corvettes down, Spiral comes down, and now you are drawing Destiny. And you're probably drawing a 1, you're drawing Destiny. So between that, you have Hyper Escape and Barrier, and so I mean, obviously, Barrier is such a great combo with Order to Engage. When that's on the table, they're really not going to go after you unless they have something to deal with threat of Barrier. Um, so yeah, this deck is just it it creates a lot of problems for Darkseid. It's definitely very beatable, um, but they have to there's a lot of silver bullets that Darkseid has. The only thing is they have to play all of them. They have to play Monarch, they have to play Battle Order. Um, there's a lot of cards that could really hurt this deck, but they have to play Cannot Hide Forever. So it's almost like pick your poison. And while they're slowly trying to get to all their silver bullets, it gives you time to kind of really start doing some damage.
No, I agree, and no, I love the audacity of the deck. You are correct that it's fun for you to play. It's not necessarily fun to be played against, but for you to play, it's very fun. And yeah, and the thing about counters, even with numbers, like if you don't have your count hide forever, you have to find a way of getting it out. So if you need to like, you have to like fish for force. So if you don't have like a Twilight Advisor, you have to like find an advisor in your force pile in order to grab it. But you hope you don't activate too much. Activate too much, numbers will get you. And no, absolutely. So yeah, you can. And you're right, Monarch, definite weakness, but again, you're deploying for 0, so they have
So
to
yeah,
get this at
you're
the
really
right
only
time.
getting Monarchs for whatever you just drew, right? So, it really hurts if they could Monarch you and take out some of your Never Tell Me the Odds, or some of the droids, or some of the other critical cards that you need, because you really have not. And also like Sense and Alter kill you too, because you play It Could Be Worse, or Rebel Barrier. Like Sense and Alter is stopping everything. You don't have any of those do or do not. Some of these cards that Hidden Base usually likes to play to keep itself safe. This deck just doesn't worry about it, because it doesn't need to play all sections, or what's the card that makes the X-Wings power +2, or search them out from your reserve deck. You're not concerned with that card, because your ships are already powerful and they already have the forfeit baked in.
Yeah, S foils is the one where the X Wings can't move, but they get power +2, and this is
Yeah.
get a non-unit.
And then
But
there's the one that you discard a card, you search out 3 X-Wings. So you don't even need to mess around with that card, because you just replaced it with all Corellian Corvettes. So you already have the ship in your hand.
yeah, you should. No, I agree with that. So, a little bit about the droids here. So, I guess so. A lot of times, Darkseid will deploy docking bays. So, but if you deploy these to a ship, the ship could get blown out, and then your numbers could go. So, do you generally prefer to deploy these to opponent sites, or would
I'll
you?
put them on ships. I don't want to. I just want to. I want the opponent to deploy to me, because then I usually have a hand with a bunch of Corellian Corvettes, and I'm going to come down and hit them harder. So the numbers, I'll try and pack them all in the same ship, all these droids, because that'll be the last ship I forfeit. But also, if they deploy to the ship that has the droids in it, now I could forfeit that instead of the ship. So I could still kind of keep some of that power at the site. So this deck, the real way that this deck is going to win, and it's not, you're not going to blow them out by a lot of force, but the real, like it's going to spill over damage.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite ways to play, is just spilling over damage. I think that's the most fun thing in Star Wars. Like ping is it's part of the game, and you need to understand it and use it effectively. But spilling over damage is that's what's fun to me.
Agreed. And when I saw this, I was kind of inspired by some decks. Like, did you know about Matt Sokol's deck? 25 years ago, world champion. This was his light side deck, right? It was similar. It was a numbers X-wing deck.
Yeah.
He had to deploy to opponent's side. He had no way to deploy to ships. So I like that your deck. You can deploy to ships. You could deploy to side if you wanted to. You're not dependent. He very much was kind of, I guess, maybe lazy is the wrong word, but he took a risk by not being able to use his numbers. So, but you never heard of it. So interesting. But he had, two could not be worse, like you did. He had only two signals, two barriers, bunch of organized attacks, which you didn't need to do. And
yeah, so this deck, so it doesn't have Luke. So now I don't know how you deal with bring him before me.
he did not. No, he did not. He won anyway, despite not having Luke. But yes, he suffered ping damage to bring before me. You're right. It was it was an omission. That's for sure. You should definitely add Luke if you're gonna use this version. No
yeah, and then Luke is 6, so that's why I'm happy to. I try to get Luke out, and then he also has a deploy discount to Endor. So when I have my Corvettes at Endor, I could deploy him there a little cheaper.
Oh, true.
I think that would be one of my only kind of changes to this deck. I think you could use more of the droids that are cheap like this. He clearly wants to be fast and get them out, for 1 force. Like R2 is 4 force, and I always found that was kind of like you don't want to be spending 4 force. You want to draw up every turn because you just deployed your whole hand. So you want to restock. And so spending 4 force on R2 and spending 6 force on Luke it is expensive, but when you hit a numbers, it was all worth it. So
no, agree. No, it makes a huge difference. That
I
extra,
I think it's good to have the forest, which actually was Ben Kenobi reviewed this deck, and he suggested putting the I think it was the swamp as a much better site than the forest, which I was like, that's a really good point. Like you put the the swamp, because they won't draw destiny.
Well, I mean, to them, you have to use plus 2 force as long as they have battle order.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm partial to the jungle, right? I like the jungle. Yeah, I like the jungle because dark side's, they
-1. Yeah,
exactly.
It does make a lot more sense. So, hat tip to Obi-Wan, Ben Kenobi.
But really, this force is just so that you can deploy Luke here. I mean, that's the only character that you could force train.
Kind of a late
this one, I guess.
You needed to satisfy battle order, because to me, battle order is it's a disaster for you late game if you can't satisfy that and you're trying to outdrain them. Because if they satisfy all the other your other cards that do damage, like Civil Disorder and Never Tell Me the Odds and Order to Engage, and you're just in a drain race, you need to satisfy battle order if they put that out. So that's the main reason for the forest. And you're not finding it until late game anyway, because there's no tunnel vision. There's no mechanism to pull it out. You just got to check your force pile. I mean, check your reserve deck, and if it's not in there, it's in your force pile.
No, true. Now you're trying to be a lean machine, and route tier here, is that just as an anti-rallops card, so you can deploy your Corvettes directly without having to move? Is that kind of why it's there?
So that's right. So the biggest weakness for this deck is that and most light side decks in general is rallops, right? Like rallops is such a beast, and hidden base really struggles against it because there aren't a lot of systems that you drain from more than one at. And so now your drains are all -1, and then you don't play a lot of characters, so you can't unflip them. So what I try to do is beat them up at router. That's really the way to prevent them from flipping, is I'll put some ships there and try and beat them up. But Dark Deal, I've played him with this, and he started to figure out, like after a few games, this deck was winning, and then like the tide just totally shifted, and he's able to flip and just keep. He beats this deck every time now with his Rallops. So when we were in the tournament and I knew everybody, or I knew a lot of the potential opponents had seen this deck, I didn't want to be relying on it because it didn't have the element of surprise and it was going to struggle against Ralops. So I wanted something that was just the exact opposite. So I built this counter Ralops deck that really only would beat Ralops, thinking that most of the people who made the top 8 probably did it with Ralops. Um, and so this deck didn't make it to the top 8, but it got me there.
Yeah. And I was trying to understand a few of the planet choices. So okay, so route tier makes sense because you want to be able to deploy your power and attack them there. And I kind of saw with like Tantive 4. So, you didn't go with the Tantive 4, I guess but you went with Spiral, which I guess makes sense. Would you potentially reconsider Tantive just because it's 2 ability, although it's,
It,
5 deploy?
so I'm not. It's a good point. I like the deploy for 4 because it's just free. You just know what's coming out of your hand, and if you use this deck, you'll see the importance of just you want to draw as much of your force. You want to use as much of your force every turn to just draw up,
Yeah,
and so it costs so much to move a fleet of like 28 Corvettes because there's one force for each one to move.
sure.
So
Yes.
if you're trying to spread around in space or get to certain places, you're using like a big chunk of your force pile to do that, and it's hard to play with a small hand. So try to be as economical as possible with the force. That would be the only reason. But you bring up a good point that the ability to could certainly be beneficial deploying to whatever site they put out. Like if you're playing against maybe Brangus or something like that, and you want to go straight to the Death Star, you can. Because again, you don't in this deck you can't really deploy to any other site except for rendezvous point. So you're just slowly migrating your ship south throughout the game.
And I guess I had a similar thought because, there's also Wedge, right? The classic Wedge,
Yeah,
he's
he
2
is my
deploy, 6
favorite.
forfeit. He's not as good as a Corvette, but he's to Destiny 4. So,
No, it would definitely be worth. If I wanted to reduce the number of Lukes, I would probably go with a wedge or if there's any of the other droids. I don't want to play more than 3 of a given droid because you don't want to get Monarch for them.
yeah,
Especially Monarch's probably going to hit you earlier on in the game, because that's when your hand will actually have some like risk to it, and so those droids, if you get Monarch for them, you don't play enough of them to find more, right? Like you got to get them out quick if you want to get your numbers going. So if you get hit, then you're set you back a couple turns.
correct. And I mean, I guess you did 3 of this one just because you like the capital, the kind of the capital synergy, so that even if you can't use numbers, he's still helping power a little bit. Is the hyperspeed making a big difference, going from I think what 3 to 4 or no?
I do like that. I do like having the ability to jump a little farther. But also the other one is unique. So I can, so if you have 2 of the, sorry, this is R3T2. So I didn't want to play multiples of characters that are unique because then you have 2 of them in your hand. You can only get 1 out anyway. So even though it is a rush to find them, and he's 2 force, so that's not as good. I think the perfect one is the Destiny 4 for 1 force. I think there's a few that are 1 force for a Destiny 3 that are non-unique, but
Yeah, there are. Like, I mean, you didn't use R2X2. Now, obviously, you don't have a starfighter here, right? But he's 1 deploy. So,
yeah.
also
So
this one's for a vehicle. So I'm just curious, like, if you re-win, would you like take 2 of these out and you put, kind of these 2 droids because they're also deploy 1, or like, did you
I would,
find that the 1
I would
power hyperspeed is helpful?
I like the hyperspace. I would keep 3 of those guys because 3 isn't as much of a risk because you're not holding them long. You're only if you draw them, you're pulling them next turn. So I'm not so concerned with 3, but the Lukes and the R2s are expensive. So I think you could replace probably a Luke and an R2 with those 2 droids or a wedge in one of those droids.
Okay. Interesting bit. I know we don't have a whole lot more time. Did you? I kind of like made like a version of this without numbers. If you're going to like psych out your opponents, you play this deck. You're not playing a numbers version. If you took out kind of the
Mhm.
droids, would you do something like this, or how would you kind of modify this deck to be a no
Oh,
numbers
that's a
game?
great question.
Yeah,
Okay, so if I was taking out the numbers to make this a little bit more friendly,
yeah,
I would probably want some sense alter protection, which looks like you put in a couple senses.
I did.
Um,
I did a
and
little bit.
then
Yeah.
I think, yeah, yeah, you definitely want the sense. I don't know if that's enough because
Okay.
if you lose that sense ultra battle, they're all going to lost pile. So
Yeah.
that's my concern there. So light side's tricky to. Um, if I feel like you kind of got to go all in or like with the sense and alter. I don't know if I would just go 2 and 1
Okay.
in this, but maybe replace them with the actual effects that come out and that give you the protection. Um, especially do or do not, or no, yeah, sorry, yeah, do or do not, just because it's nice hitting them with the ping. In this deck, Dark Side doesn't really have a lot of answers for ping.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't care so like if you get a projection of a Skywalker, if that does 3 damage to them, that card was totally worth it. So yeah, so like these cards that aren't immune to Sense and Alter, is it worth it for them to cancel for losing 3 force? And I'd say most of these cards, yes. It looks like. So I'm not. Yeah, see, on the edge. Every hidden base user likes to have some element of retrieval.
Yeah.
I I don't love. I mean, if you want to track it, I guess that's fine. Your late game, it's probably pretty effective. So who are you using that on? I guess it would have to be Luke or Obi. Can you use it on Bausch if she's undercover?
Yeah, I mean, you can deploy Obi or Luke to a Corvette, and you can sense alter from there or there. You have, I made it with Wedge. Obviously, this is my deck, right? My interpretation of how I'd move your deck, and obviously, you'd have to take some time to think about. But I found that Wedge, canceling, Battle Destinies in space is supremely powerful. He works
Oh
perfectly
yeah,
fine on a Corvette, and that
yeah.
can also turn the tide against Zuckuss, kind of thing.
Okay, so I think my solution would be just add more Corvettes and take out
Okay.
old characters.
Okay. No characters, more Corvettes. All right. So,
More Corvettes.
all
No, I
right.
do like the EPP loop though. I think he works well, especially with the forest. EPP, OB, yeah, the spies are good. But yeah, instead of the wedge, instead of the sense and alters, yeah, those two. And then yeah, I do like it. Let's see, what else do I have? You honor, no numbers. Yeah, I think it could be worse as a really important card in any hidden base because of security precautions. Like that's their big knockout punch for you, and then when you have and it could be worse ready for them. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice way to avoid that. So you got the barriers. I would probably take out the out of commissions as well for some Corvettes. And I guess my only issue with the EPPs in this deck is your destiny is going to be awful.
True.
Like you're
Yeah.
drawing,
Okay. So
yeah,
maybe take out the EP. Would you have Obi there too, or just to Jedi Knight only, or what would you do?
yeah, maybe just it's really your preference. I think you just need Luke for bringing before me, but you're not doing a lot on the ground. You're not really battling them on the ground. The EPP is really like I, you play so many sites and so many ones that this deck just you can't ever put yourself in a position where you're hoping for a good destiny because odds are it's not coming. But in space, when you draw one, you're fine with that because you just want to hopefully knock out one ship or one card, and then you have enough power that they have to choose. If you have more power than them, even if they don't have to force from the site, they're usually going to choose to do that because otherwise they might be losing the force directly from their life force, right? But yeah, I think this deck works with more Corvettes and fewer characters. I know that's the thing about space decks is like they won't always be so interactive on the ground. It's hard for light side. I always view light side as you dark side could be balanced. Dark side could just kind of stick to the fundamentals and play, say like try and play defense. Whereas light side, you could pick ground, you could pick space, you could pick playing slow or playing fast, but you light side picks the lane it wants to use and it kind of has to and it goes all in on it. So like profit, for example, super fast, get your cards on the table, no space whatsoever. And just hit them with ping damage, and dark side's gonna have a tough time with that. Training is the exact opposite. You're starting with, battle plan on the table, and you're gonna slow play the whole game, and hopefully by turn 8 or 9, then you start deploying cards. So you'll use anger, fear, aggression in the early part of the game, and then and so light side kind of wants to dictate the pace of the game, and dark side just needs to kind of be prepared for everything.
Makes sense. I agree with you. So, all right, cool. Nice to know that. Don't know if you had any more time. Did you want to go over your speeders deck or? Do we need to
I
pause?
think we can maybe save that for another time. I think, Bill, I think you do such a great job with these videos. I just want to watch. I want to listen to everybody talk about their decks. I think I absolutely loved Mandarin's video. I'm friends with him, and he's spoke like we've talked about his hunt down, and just hearing him go through it on the video, I feel I even learn more than just from talking to him. So I think you're doing a great job. I think this is great for the community. I think this is going to get people, more people playing, more people trying out decks, and just experimenting. So thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Andrew. COTVG, it's been a pleasure. No, I love sharing it. Manor's interview was great, and I can't wait to share this interview with everyone too. So thanks so much again, and take care.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.